Welcome everyone to this tutorial on using Microsoft Editor in MS Word. I will start by just describing some of the basic functions, but I think this tutorial is more towards trying to get the most out of Microsoft Word. We're going to set up some shortcuts to help us with time, to be very efficient, and to make setting tests and worksheets and PowerPoints that much easier. So we should all know that Microsoft Word is located here under Insert, and we can choose an equation. You might also notice that there are a few pre-made equations, and those type of things can help you a little bit, and you can find more equations that other people have made. But let's try and understand how we can create those same equations very quickly. So the first thing that I'd like to introduce you to, even if you take one thing away from this whole tutorial, is instead of having to go insert equation every time, there is a shortcut key for inserting equations, which is to hold down Alt and then use equals. And that inserts an equation. It is center justified, but it's a starting point to save you a couple of clicks. And we've all experienced the basics of an equation editor where we can type a fairly straightforward equation such as that. Okay, and then we might want to go down here and solve that equation. So we're going to get 3x on that side. On this side here, we're going to get -4. And so here our x is equal to -4/3. Now that's showing you the first simple shortcut that most people would be familiar with from things like Excel, but here we can type a common fraction in like that. We put the / and we push spacebar, and that it converts it then to a fraction with a numerator and a denominator. One of the things I'd like to talk about first is just some of the options available to you, especially with something like equations. If we highlight these 3 rows of text and we go in here and we right click, one of the options here is to align it at equals. So now for my equation, all of my equal signs underneath that. Let's introduce a new equation here. And let's say that we're going to now have a hyperbola, something like that, or at least a rational function. So we can go here 2/x. Fine, that quite quickly puts it as a fraction. Let's say now the second fraction, we wanted to have 3 over, but now we wanted to have x plus 1. So if I just type x plus 1, you can see that as soon as I type the next character, it automatically went and put only the x in the denominator. Now you can go back and change it afterwards. However, simply by typing 3 over and then putting brackets with x plus 1, those brackets tell Word that I want the whole 2 terms to be in the denominator there, and now I've got 2 terms in the denominator. The same way, if I wanted to have 2 terms in the numerator, then I'd have to open my brackets and choose here x plus 1, and then we can choose a denominator here, say 2. And then now I have 2 terms in the numerator. If I want to quickly justify this to the left, I can push Control and L, and that will quickly, without me having to move my hands from the keyboard, puts it on the left of my page. Okay, so let's not kid ourselves. You can do a huge amount in equation editor by carefully looking through all of these options up here in terms of the different accents and radicals. You can use these fractions here. And here, if we click on this drop down, here we've got a whole bunch of symbols, alphas and betas and thetas and pi's. So it's fairly extensive. We can get through. There's my degree symbol. You can do a whole lot with your mouse. And I hope you've chosen this option here to explore different things. For example, our letter-like symbols for when we're doing the number system. We have some interesting things here, like there's our actual division symbol, multiplication, things like not equal to. So there's our therefore down at the bottom there. So if you learn these options here, there's a nice angle symbol, perpendicular, parallel. If we learn what's under each menu, you can get fairly efficient at typing. But let's just think about how we would do this. So let's just say we wanted to say something like angle ABC. So I start with the A, and then I want to go and choose here this option of a hat. So say my angle is at B, then I'm going to choose C, that's fine, equals is fine. Now I can type here 43, but now I have to pick up my hand, find my mouse or my trackpad, and choose the degrees. Okay, we could do all of that without lifting our hands off the keyboard. So I'm going to go Alt equals, I'm going to go A, B, hat, push spacebar again, that sets it. There's my hat on the C, equals 43 backslash degree. Now, if you just type that in, you won't get the degree symbol. You would have to type in backslash DEGRRE. So what I've shown you there is I've made a custom shortcut to get a degree symbol very quickly. These should, in a test, not be italic. So like that there. But let's say as well, you doing a memorandum for a test, you want to do some geometry here. We want to type adjacent. And I can undo the autocorrect there. Now I want to just type angle. Now I could go up into my symbols, choose basic math, geometry, find my angle. Oh, there's my angle. However, there is also a shortcut, ANGLE, gives me an angle. I've then created an even shorter version of that, ANG. And then I can simply carry on, push my right arrow, angles on a straight line. So that's some of the power that's possible with Equation Editor to save us a lot of time, keep our hands on the keyboard, be much more efficient in typing up memos. Some of the other basic functionality that has probably encountered before is the use of subscripts and superscripts or exponents, right? So if I type here X and then I use that symbol, which is not a hat, that is a caret apparently, X squared minus 2X plus 5 equals 0. I can choose anything once I have E, and I'm going to choose now my superscript, and I can choose here to go I for an imaginary number, I pi, that now another shortcut to get a pi equal to -1. If we want to do some subscripts, so let's say we're also doing some geometry, we can type in S hat, spacebar again. Now I've got angle S. Then I choose here shift underscore. And I can say, well, that's angle S2 is equal to 23 degrees. We go back here and we highlight that. Control I takes away the italic. And now we've got a label there for S2. So where do we find all of these commands? Well, I'm going to put up a PDF that has the common ones that I use. If we open our equation editor and we go under here, if we go down to basic math, as you hover over different things, for example, there's not equal to, you can see here that we have two shortcuts, NEQ and NE. Now those are predefined. If I go here to the times multiplication, the predefined one is \times. I've added in another option that's more efficient for me to go \x. So how do we go and add in custom shortcuts? The way we do that is it's actually an autocorrect function. So in your Word options, and I'm sorry, I'm using the Windows version, we go down to our options here. We go down to proofing. Here's our autocorrect options. Now the first set here, these are some options you should probably look at depending on what you like in Word with autocorrect and what you don't. So for example, you can remove this if you never use copyright and we use the brackets with C all the time. It's actually possible to delete that and say, I don't want that anymore. However, there's another tab next to it called Math Autocorrect. And here you can see, it's another example that you can see all the built-in. So you've even got something there for degrees Celsius. You'll notice here that that is the degree that is built into Word. And as soon as I click on that, it picks up what you're going to replace with what symbol. Now that we've got this symbol here, we can go up, and all I've done in the past is I've just gone, well, it would save me a lot of time to do just degree. So then, unfortunately, I've got one here. We'll look at adding up there. Because I've now got that option, you can click on add here. I've already set it up. If I just took it around there and I wanted to have it even shorter, DE, I could add it in there. So I'll just go through a few of the shortcuts that I have used. So for example, to do times, as in the cross symbol, you could write out the full word times, but I've now set it up \x. It doesn't happen when I type normal x's. I have to type \x, push spacebar, and there's a times symbol. Another one that I use all the time is a therefore. Okay, and that again is a custom one. The full word one would be therefore, but I've shortened it to say, all right, I just want therefore. The Greek letters are built in. So again, if you want to do alpha, you just push spacebar, there's your alpha. But because we use alpha so frequently, and this doesn't conflict with another shortcut, I've set it up just to say \a, there's my alpha there. You saw in the equation options how many clicks it would take you to get to something like the double N for natural numbers. And the official shortcut would be to go double N, spacebar. And there we go. There's my double N. But that's possibly even longer than clicking a few times to get your double N. So what I've done, and again, because I've checked that it doesn't conflict with anything else, I just go \N, push spacebar, and there I've got a double N for natural numbers. I've got a double R for real numbers. I've got a double Z for integers. Of course, here you could still go and put a subscript in to make them whole numbers, but I think that's just a far more efficient way of doing that, of entering these symbols. Another common one here, which we often get wrong, is to say something's an element of. So I've set that up simply as the official one is IN, which is not bad, but in my head, I'm always thinking that this is an element. So I've got \E for elements, and I immediately get that symbol there. Another common one is if we want to say here triangle ABC. Now, the triangle symbol that's built into Word is actually a capital delta. So you can get that by choosing \DLTA. There we go. That's the triangle symbol we're familiar with. But what I've done is, because again, it doesn't conflict with anything, and I use delta all the time for triangles, I've got that triangle ABC, select those with Shift, Control I. Now I have triangle ABC. Again, another thing we use all the time is square roots. Now this is the built-in functionality to Word, where we can do the square root, and we can type under there, again, using brackets, x minus 1 squared, something like that. So we type squared here, and then we type the space bar again, and the radical goes over the whole term. But one of the more frustrating ones is when you have a different root, like the 7th root. So a built-in function here is we still use the square root, and then we just use a special syntax to say, I want the 7th root. I just choose and. That's how Word knows that I want the 7 to go outside it, to be the base of the radical. And then I'm going to choose, for example, x. So as soon as I push enter here, spacebar, there I've got the 7th root of x. When we're doing stats, you might want to talk about the mean. So x with a bar, again, you can find it in the accents in the ribbon, but we know it's a bar. So we type \bar, type space once, type space again, and now we've got a bar over our x. When we get into grade 12 and we're doing sigma notation, you can quickly get a sigma symbol, sum. Right, and now I have it there, and I can type in an argument and say 2p plus 1. But one of the more frustrating ones again, and it's not that bad to choose from here, a large operator, is to choose one of these options here with the limits. There is a more hectic notation here, but again, if you get your head around it, I don't think it's that bad. The sum, And we're going to choose, \sum. We're going to choose first a subscript. The subscript will be whatever is the lower limit there, or the starting value of a series. And I'm going to type it, because it's not just n, it's n equals to 1, for example. I can do that. And then I want to say here, what's my upper limit? And again, I use the symbol for superscript to say, right, I'm going to take this to 7 terms as well. And then by just pushing spacebar, I get those two things, and then I can type in whatever function I want here. Okay, so that's the power. I think you must customize it. Think about what functions you're using all the time in Equation Editor, and go into your autocorrect options, look what the original autocorrect is, decide whether it's worthwhile setting up a shorter version to help you with typing equations as efficiently as possible. I know some people are resistant to Equation Editor, the built-in Equation Editor, because no matter what we do here with this, we can't change the font. No matter what we choose there, it still stays as Cambria Math. However, and this is going to have some caveats, it is actually possible to change the font of something like this, especially when it's just text. So if we go into the equation options here, the default is a Unicode, and that's the language that we've been speaking, all right? It comes from another language, LaTeX. And if you know LaTeX, it's very similar to the shortcuts of things like \times. That's the language that comes from LaTeX. Unicode is just a slightly simplified version. This third option says that you can use non-math text in a math region. So with this highlighted, I just choose text. Now, apparently nothing's changed here. However, now that I've selected text, if I go into my home, I go here and I choose my Times New Roman font. Now this label has changed into Times New Roman. We can see what it looks like here with something like this. With the Sigma notation, we're going to choose there to make it text. We're going to go home here. We're going to change it here to Times New Roman. Now, you might notice that this suddenly has lost a little bit of its formatting. Normally, these letters end within an equation are italicized, so I'm highlighting the N, choosing Control-I to make it italic. We can get a little space between the letters there. I'm going to go down into this lower field here. Make that. No, I don't want to make the whole thing italic, because then the 1 becomes italic as well. We only want the letter N to be italic. We put a space and we choose another space. And so now you can see that there is a slight difference between these fonts. This now perfectly matches Times New Roman. It does get a little tricky when we have more complex equations. So I'm going to go into these pre-made equations here, and down here is our classic quadratic formula. Let's just give ourselves some space here. So we can highlight this. It's done in Cambria because it's just a Unicode equation. We choose text. Ooh, okay, right. I can still see the building blocks there. We go in here and we choose Times New Roman. But again, we're going to have to do some tweaking here. For a start, these minus symbols are not really minus symbols. That's more like just a dash. It is possible to insert a symbol, the minus symbol. I had to look quite hard for this. So here it is under Times New Roman, mathematical operators. There's my times symbol. I choose to insert, and that's a better looking minus symbol. So I put a space there, do Control-I, space, space. This needs to be italic. This one here, again, once you've found that symbol, it stays in your recent history. So when you're setting a test, it should be okay. The 4 is fine, and then we can make these letters both italic, and then down here italic, and of course our X should be italic with a space and a space. Now you do notice that we have a problem there, that this radical, as soon as I change this B to be italic, it changed that radical. I think, or it might have been these ones here. No, and I can't get it. I can't work out why it's changing, how to not get it to change those, the radical, for the root. If we really want to keep italic throughout, there is software called MathType. It's not free software. Then you can get a discount for being an educational institution, but I understand for a single user license, it's about $50 per year. And in that, then you definitely can change the font to be Times New Roman and do all of your equations within that font. I have recently discovered that there seems to be an add-in for Microsoft Word. What I can't tell you is that I haven't used it for 30 days. I don't know whether it lasts longer than that. But I'm just going to share that with you so that when we sit in these November exams, this might be helpful. So if you go here to, you can see here, I'm on the insert there, get add-ins. The easiest way to find this is to search for MathType here. Search for that. Now, you see the 2-star rating here, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. But you can add it in there. When you add it in there, you then get, for an add-in here, a MathType. If you click on this MathType, this seems to be web-based. So I don't know, I don't think it works without a web connection. You can open MathType here. As you can see here, it's opening. This Wirus is the producers of the professional MathType 7. But this screen here will be quite familiar if you've used the old MathType. So if we want to do our quadratic equation here, x equals, I'm going to immediately set the font up here. As you don't have a huge selection, but you can choose Arial for like IEB schools, Times New Roman for our government schools, x equals negative b plus or minus. See, it doesn't do shortcuts. So you have to go and find the plus minus here. Plus or minus. We choose here our root function, square root of b, choose your exponent, squared minus 4 minus 4ac, and then go down here to a. Now, I don't know if it's just my computer, but the way this dialog box opens, you have to scroll down until you can find the insert. So now if I click on insert, there, and it creates it as a picture, which is actually fairly useful. So you can do wrapping things here. But if you remember what we were doing in the equation thing, because it's a picture, you can type in and around it. So I can say here, the quadratic formula, and we keep the fraction as it's meant to be. I think it's slower, but if we want to be consistent with our fonts, we have to do that. Now, if you double click on this, it doesn't open the equation. To edit this equation afterwards, you have to click on it with this MathType window open on the side here and choose open in MathType. Again, we wait a little bit here, and this is a beta apparently, so we'll see how long this lasts. But now I can go here and go, well, actually, let me put some values in here. So let me put 2. And if I do that, I go down here and I choose insert again. Then it does reflect those changes I've made. So that is the last option. If we're having a particular troublesome equation, we do have this MathType add-in, which does seem to be able to do complex things. There's a lot more that you can do in MathType. In particular, in the past, I've used it for strange things, so in particular, maybe for lower grades or even grade 12 when we're doing the long division of polynomials. Choosing that here gives me, it's not a perfect fraction, but it is the idea that we can have x minus 1 there. We have here x squared minus 3x plus 5. Okay, I know the formatting looks a little weird there. You can leave it like this, and you can even then push enter and go on to a next line. We know that this first term at the top is going to be an x, so under here we can type in x squared. Then we're going to have minus x. Okay, so let's just leave it there for now. We go down here, we choose in insert. So there are more options available with MathType, but there are challenges that come with it as well. Another thing you want to try and experiment with, probably applies more to what you do in AP Maths and the things that we set in AP Maths, but you can modify certain aspects of this here. So for example, if you right click on that, you can change the limits so that they're in front here. Let's undo that. You can also increase or decrease those sides. So these are the argument sides, so I can increase them there if I want to emphasize them more. There are other options. One of the options, if you're doing a piecewise function, you might want to say, well, f of x is equal to, and then if I open a bracket, it's going to, and I type in, let's say here, I might want to use a matrix to distinguish like 3 different functions there. If I push space, that bracket doesn't go around it. I can choose here another closing bracket, but now I've got 2 brackets there. So let's just say we had 3 functions here, 3x minus 1, 2x, and x squared. And we should have domains for those as well. But one of the options here is to remove the closing bracket. So now I don't have that closing bracket. I can then go and add in another row of matrices here to say, right, well, this is when x is less than 1. This is when x is equal to 1. And this is when x is greater than 1. But another annoying thing here is that there's very little space here. We can add a little bit of space at the end there. But now these are not aligned to the left in the matrix. So what you can do here, column alignment, you're going to choose left for all of them. And now if you do, you just can give yourself a little bit of space there, but at least those are all on the left-hand side. So I encourage you just to see what options are available. For example, if we just do the sum there, we can add in the upper, lower limits, 1, both, neither. So there are a lot of options. Let's just talk about these professional versus linear. Professional is what we create when the equation is only in its own line of text. As soon as I go and type any normal text after that, it automatically shifts it to linear. So if I go and look at this equation here, as soon as I type spacebar to type anything after that, it's changed this equation into a linear one with a small fraction afterwards. And we looked at how to get around that using things like text boxes or columns and tables. But understand that for equations to display in their full height, the equation must be in its own row. Okay, please check the links in the description below for more things on the Maths autocorrect, more options there. Also, there's some other videos that I will link to that have helped me in the past get the most out of Equation Editor. There's a whole bunch more that you can do, but I just tried to cover the most important stuff for the South African high school maths assessments. Okay, if you find anything else you think is brilliant, or if you have better ways of doing it, or you know of how to change the font in a more reliable way without messing up radicals, please leave comments below the channel. All right, good luck.